Hello and welcome to another episode of Father and Joe. I'm Joe Rockey, here with Father Boniface Hicks. And Father, we were discussing last week about the potential dangers of technology, specifically AI, of creeping into our relationships and ultimately weakening us. And we can see this in a lot of different examples. For instance, having an AI do your homework for you is like the equivalent of paying someone to work out for you. Like, you're not actually getting stronger by the AI doing your homework. You're not learning things or pushing yourself. You're just producing content to complete a task, which when you're 38 and you need to do some report that no one really cares about, but it's just for compliance in case you get audited, okay, that makes sense. When you're in third grade and you need to understand the basics of grammar, that's a foundation of your knowledge. Now it's not okay. So we do have this ability to prioritize and need to know what's going on, and that's good. And what I wanted to bring up in today's episode was a thought process, and this is a thought experiment here about maybe how to tell when you're investing your own personal resources, your own emotional, relationship abilities into somewhere where it shouldn't be. And this is a thought process I've been thinking about. Again, Father, I think it's kind of the way there, but I also don't want to try to say it's a complete thought. But when I look starting in the actual genuine relationship of person to person world, one of the ways that you can tell that something is off in the relationship is that there's a sense of emptiness that eventually starts to get created. And that emptiness can be described in a couple of different ways. Just lacking value, maybe a loneliness, maybe just unheard, whatever that case might be. But there's eventually some feeling of this isn't right. And where it came back to me in thinking of this was not just from personal experiences in working with, not talking with other people, but also it takes me back to one of the conversations we had very early on in Father and Joe, which the answer was sin ultimately is trying to fill something that's infinite with something that's finite. So there's always a spot of missing out. And we've also discussed about how the destruction of relationships, specifically the relationship with God, is what sin is. So I start this as saying, obviously, AI is not God. Do not try to conflate that and try to think what I'm saying. But we have all these mechanisms of knowing what a relationship should be inside of us. And when a relationship is off, we still can get those same indicator feelings. I just feel shallow. I feel empty. I feel hollow, or whatever. This is not where it's supposed to be. And I've been thinking about this as a test of, am I looking for something out of something that just isn't there? In this case, a computer that listens to me really good and cool, and it's telling me what I think I want to hear. But is it actually a connection that's a meaningful relationship, or could it be? And this is kind of the test I was thinking about going into this. So at the end of my interaction, or reflecting back upon my interactions with this person, program, part of my life, however you want to call it, does it actually come across as fulfilling, or does it leave me longing for more? And that's kind of the test that I wanted to throw by you, because I think that having a little benchmarks or ways of being able to tell whether or not this is worth investing in for myself and teaching it to my family.
Yeah, it's a great question. I wish I had read the Vatican's document on this more closely, and I could reference it now for us, because I think it has a lot to offer. The document Antiqua et Nova, because yeah, how long does it take? People are going to using like AI therapists, because when I give certain words, the feeling of being received and understood, having my words echoed back to me, having insight provided, and points clarified, a lot of things that therapists do for people can be fulfilled by generative AI. And so there is something that's really satisfying. At what point does it feel, or does it become false? At what point does it become empty or become a hollow shell? At what point do I really feel the lack of relationship that's there? I don't know exactly what that looks like, to be honest. I know that happens, and we start to enter into a distorted reality as we personify those AI bots more and more. What do I track in myself that's lacking? Yeah, it's a really good question. I wish I had better measures for you. And,
Well, I also
might
don't
have
think
to.
I don't think it's something that they're. It's not science. It's not going to be you put in 2 tablespoons of this, 3 tablespoons of this, and boom, now you got brownies. Because all of us have different temperaments and all the other things we've discussed many times here. But I do think that in a way you just addressed that is a reality. We all might get there at a different point and have a different realization standpoint of, oh, okay. But that notion of, okay, this isn't really helpful. In fact, it actually might be taking away from something. That to me is the red flag that is either the expectations or the vulnerability you're sharing with the relationship in this standpoint, the other party, is off. And to me, that's kind of where you realize it. Knowing the more vulnerable and open and trusting we get, it's a multiplier effect to greatness. But if there's not any form of balance whatsoever, you get these feelings of exposed. I feel like I'm about to be in a trap. I get taken advantage of and stuff like that. And, every person's had these different feelings in different capacities in relationships in their lives. And as people, we know how to interact with each other to try to fix them or rupture them to the degree that we can and want to. With a computer, maybe not. And maybe because of the computer, you don't know exactly what its intents are. So it's programmed to listen to your story, be able to emotionally figure out what the charged words are, calm you down, and give you an answer. But it's not going to be able to give insight into, well, this is what really might be better for you in the future. Based upon what you've told me, this is what your patterns are. Based upon the 13 other clients I've had come through that chair over the last 15 years, that you're exhibiting this. Let me ask you this insightful follow-up question based upon my experience. And it might be able to do all of that stuff in a mimicking way. But what it can't do, in my opinion, is ever truly genuinely care. And to me, that's the disconnect. And to me, that's the part where, to me, it seems like an inevitable trap that's going to leave you empty and damage your relationship skills. And again, that's the fear I bring up with all this, why I created this test in the first place, to have people question it, and to put it out there. So like I said, I talk to people all over the world about this in lots of different ways, but it's this relationship back, and I get to talk to you about it, where I think the true bedrock is.
Yeah, I like a couple of, I like everything you said, but just a couple of things you said caught my attention. You said, we don't know what its intentions are. Actually, it doesn't have any intentions. By definition, there's no interiority for AI. And so it doesn't have intentions. It doesn't have motivations. It doesn't have desires. It doesn't have any of that. So it's driven by an algorithm, and the algorithm is processing data. So we're using those human analogies, and then you brought that into saying it doesn't truly care. It doesn't care, and that's one of the things we can pay attention to, is how care is expressed. And we need a hand on our cheek or a hand on our shoulder or an embrace. We need a look of compassion that comes not just from a simulation, but actually from a heart. And we can tell the difference. We need some of those spontaneous responses that acknowledge the goodness of our person, delight in our being, joy that we exist. And those happen not so much in words as they happen in presence, in facial expressions, psychomotor reactions. Those things are missing in generative AI. And then I just found a couple of things from Antiqua et Nova, the Vatican document. So it says, for example, human intelligence is embodied. So another thing that AI it'll never go through your house burning down. Like, it doesn't experience what a rainstorm is like. It doesn't experience the structures of fear or anxiety, of anger or indignation. It doesn't have, our intelligence grows as we grow. And so there's a little child in us, there's an adult man in us, and we have memories and experiences that are influenced by all of that. The smell of muffins in the kitchen is going to evoke for some a powerful memory of real tenderness from their grandmother when they were growing up. AI has no way of simulating that or knowing that or being able to connect with that. So nostalgia around particular memories is not going to be there. And then the Vatican document says, although AI can simulate aspects of human reasoning and perform specific tasks with incredible speed and efficiency, its computational abilities represent only a fraction of the broader capacities of the human mind. For instance, AI cannot currently replicate moral discernment or the ability to establish authentic relationships. Moreover, human intelligence is situated within a personally lived history of intellectual and moral formation that fundamentally shapes the individual's perspective, encompassing the physical, emotional, social, moral, and spiritual dimensions of life. AI cannot offer this fullness of understanding, and approaches that rely solely on this technology or are treated as the primary means of interpreting the world can lead to a loss of appreciation for the whole, for the relationships between things, and for the broader horizon. Those are things that are situated in the right brain, according to the more recent brain science around right and left brain. Left brain is more analytical and categorical and logical, whereas the right brain is able to take in the whole, is more intuitive, detects value. And then it goes on to say, human intelligence is not primarily about completing functional tasks, but about understanding and actively engaging with reality in all its dimensions. It is also capable of surprising insights. Since AI lacks the richness of corporeality, relationality, and the openness of the human heart to truth and goodness, its capacities, though seemingly limitless, are incomparable with the human ability to grasp reality. So much can be learned from an illness, an embrace of reconciliation, and even a simple sunset. Indeed, many experiences we have as humans open new horizons and offer the possibility of attaining new wisdom. No device working solely with data can measure up to these and countless other experiences present in our lives. So it's focusing on the richness and the complexity of human experience, which is more than is just reduced into words or data that generative AI can work with. So again, it's kind of pressing into the idea that our creativity is coming from more than just the processing of words and data, and comes from a more embodied experience of reality that we uniquely have as human beings.
Yeah, and it's in a lot of ways, what you just described there is essentially the foundation of us and why it can't be on the same foundation. And one of the other things that, I mean, we are a show that's called Father and Joe that talks about religion a lot, but one of the words we don't discuss a lot, and it seems to be coming across here, is this is obviously foundational difference they can't do, but this could partially be, it doesn't have a soul. There's no way to say that. And you know, we try to find different ways of expressing this throughout the centuries. And essentially the way it got taught to me is it's just there. Trust me, it's there. There's no real scientific way to prove that you have a soul. However, you can make an argument that AI has gotten as close to mimicking a relationship as you can, but there's all this emptiness and hollowness. The lack of a soul could be one of those connecting factors. You obviously went through all the sensory input stuff that it cannot receive, seeing a sunset, feeling a warm wind, hearing a rain, etc., let alone memories. And I think that there is a certain element that we are damaging by losing these relationship skills. And I think that just like every other part of us, maturity, muscles, whatever, developing the soul for holiness is part of what AI would not be able to do. And it's one of the most important things we are called to do. So again, by no means am I trying to say don't ever use it, it's evil or anything like that. I'm saying we need to check our own selves and to check what is it doing to our relationship skills and what is our relationship with it.
Yeah, and to be clear, some of those experiences are precisely more than sensory data. So AI can actually take in sensory data, but it can't experience the whole. There's something about a sunset which is more than just an analysis of the color spectrum. But when we experience a sunset, we experience the vastness of the sky, the uniqueness of these color combinations. We have a sense of a person who created this, and maybe of a sense of this was a gift for me, that I feel specifically spoiled by this particular experience. So the experience is much more than a collection of data. The experience is more relational, interpersonal, and fully embodied in a way that impacts our souls and also is received by us. Again, an experience is a rich word describing something that is that's always embodied for us in our humanity.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Thinking about all the different elements that we have at our disposal, and we are, I don't know, neglecting, taking advantage of, taking for granted that these are all there because they don't come through the window of a screen. And I think that is certainly one of the things to recognize, that the old school wasn't always wrong. And that the notion of building relationships in an interpersonal way is still paramount need for each of us as individuals. And losing sight on those abilities and skills, to me, is one of the things that could have a massive ripple effect, like a tsunami upon society. So that's my fear with this. That's why I wanted to devote this episode and the last episode to this topic conversation. And I thank you for having it, Father. And if you have any final thoughts for today's episode, I'd love to hear them.
Well, I just, if I can even take a step back and affirm you for the questions that you're raising and having the discussion. If there's one takeaway for everyone, it would be to do more of that. Don't just blindly follow, but keep noticing the impact and keep wondering about what it means and what it is. Don't categorically condemn things or accept things in this regard, but just keep wondering, how can this be something that supports our humanity, which is always essentially relational? What are ways that it might be taking away from our humanity or trying to substitute itself for relationships. And I think as we apply those criteria, we can continue to kind of engage in our own philosophical method in handling these new technologies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you all very much for being with us here today. And we will be with you again next week. And if you haven't already, please leave us a star and written review upon whatever platform you are watching. It does make a tremendous difference, which has been measurable. We're up 50% from year to year. So we appreciate all of you guys helping and sending more people to us. We invite you to keep doing the same. So thank you all very much. And we'll be with you again next week.